Hi guys, this is gsndom.com and I'm here with the OnePlus 2 for a full review of the flagship OnePlus phone this year. This is the successor of the OnePlus 1 that for many people, including experts, was considered the phone of the year 2014. Now we're in 2015, many more flagships to compete with, and as usual the OnePlus 2 is available to an invite system. Now you have 3 days to claim your invite instead of 24 hours like before. The product was launched this summer and we got it at a price tag of 399 euros plus some shipping fees of 24.49 euros. And I have to say that the total sum for this phone was 423.49 euros, so that's how much we paid for it. Anyway, this is the 4GB RAM version plus 64GB storage, OnePlus 2, and now it's time to discuss the design. So this model is thicker and heavier than the OnePlus 1. Now it measures 9.85 millimeters. The OnePlus 1 was 8.9 millimeters in weight line, and this one weighs 175 grams compared to the predecessor's 162 gram weight. The length has also changed only by a bit. This one measures 151.8 millimeters, while the predecessor measured 152.9 millimeters. So this one is actually 1 millimeter shorter than the predecessor. It's also much lighter than the iPhone 6s Plus that weighs 192 grams. Also, it's 7 millimeters shorter than the same iPhone 6s Plus if you really want a comparison. The grip is good, mostly because of the back texture. It's a bit like sandpaper, so to say. And we're also getting here a very solid aluminum magnesium alloy frame, a solid metal frame that also increased the weight of the device. I have to mention that this is a phablet after all, a 5.5-inch phablet, not very easy to use with a single hand, as you can see right here. Okay, so at the back there is this rugged and rough sandpaper-like texture, and this was also met on the 64GB version of the OnePlus 1 last year. This is not a very comfy phone, it's quite massive, it has that metal frame that feels angular in your hand, and it's a bit cold and tough, so to say, massive. Okay, so at the front we got the front camera, earpiece, the usual sensors, and the notification LED here in this area. Then we got the home button below the screen, which is a novelty compared to the predecessor. This home button is actually a touch one, not a physical one. It's not like the button from the Galaxy S6 models or the iPhone models that went deeper when you pressed it. This one doesn't, it's a capacitive button itself. Also with fingerprint scanner included and two other capacitive buttons flanking it. They only have a line, they don't have marks for recents or back, which may be a problem for some people. Also, the screen has quite big bezels compared to nowadays standards. At the back we find the main camera, strangely placed much lower than on other modern phones. Below it there is the laser focus mechanism, and above it two flashes. Okay, this back cover can also be removed, and not only removed but also replaced with other textures like let's say maybe a bamboo cover, hardwood and other materials. If you don't have long nails, it's a bit hard to remove this cover. You really have to get your nail in there, or simply hope to pry it open using a sharper material. Well, that's taking a while. Okay, so we finally pried open the case by using a sharp knife. Keep in mind if you have some longer fingernails, if you really want to remove this plasticky back cover that, by the way, gets dirty very easily because of its texture that adheres to dirt. Okay, so below this cover there is the no removable battery somewhere around here, and here we have a small tray that holds the two nano SIM card slots. Okay, so we put this back. There's no micro SD card here in case you're wondering, and once again the camera looks really weird being so low on the back side. At the top there is the audio jack, microphone and a cutout for the antenna, while at the bottom we find the USB Type-C port flanked by two would-be speakers. Only the one from the right is a speaker, this one is only for aesthetic purposes, probably hosting the microphone. Two more antenna cutouts are also present here. Then we proceed to the left where you can see the brand new alert slider that has 3 positions, that are shown on the screen. So we got all notifications, priority interruptions, and no interruptions at all. We'll discuss that later on. And on the other side, we got the volume buttons and power button. Both these buttons and this one here are metallic buttons with excellent feedback. The overall conclusion for the design is that this model feels solid, but the back texture is a bit strange for the average phone user. It's a good thing that the back cover is replaceable with more aesthetically pleasing covers. This is not a pretty phone, not aesthetically pleasing, and I would say not even very comfy, but it's solid and the materials are quite good. For example, the frame is very solid and magnesium and aluminum alloy never hurt anyone. So overall for the design, I have to say that this device is not comfy and not very good looking, but functional and solid. I have to say that the Nexus 6P is prettier, and even the Nexus 6 looks better than this one. Now as far as the hardware is concerned, we're getting here a 5.5-inch screen, an LCD in-cell screen, Full HD resolution on a 5.5-inch diagonal and 401 ppi density. Inside this handset you will find an octa-core processor of the Snapdragon 810 kind, clocked at 1.8 GHz. This is actually version 2.1 of the CPU. It's a 64-bit CPU, underclocked. It used to be 2.1 GHz in the original version, now it's 1.8 GHz to avoid overheating. The GPU available here is the Adreno 430, and other specs include 3 or 4 GB of RAM, depending on the version you're getting, and this one is LPDDR4 RAM, as well as 16 or 64 GB of eMMC storage, no microSD card whatsoever, and 2 cameras. Up front, 5-megapixel shooter for selfies, while at the back 30-megapixel dual LED and the laser focus thingy. On the connectivity side, we get Wi-Fi dual band, BGNA and AC, Bluetooth 4.1, we got GPS, GLONASS, USB Type-C obviously, LTE category 4 as far as I know. There's no NFC here, so remember that. Sensors include accelerometer, gyroscope, proximity sensor, brightness sensors, and finally the fingerprint scanner. Other specs include dual microphones and a speaker, and now it's time to talk about the battery. So the battery here is a 3300 mAh lithium polymer unit. The OnePlus One had a 3100 mAh unit. And as usual, we performed the test that involves HD video playback in a loop with Wi-Fi on and brightness at the 200 lux, and let's see how much time we achieved. Okay, so we achieved 9 hours and 10 minutes, which is okay for a phablet, but I've seen better even in 2014. We beat the OnePlus One that scored 8 hours and 54 minutes, also the Galaxy A5 from Samsung with its 9 hours, and the LG G4 with its 8 hours and 55 minutes. We scored below the Galaxy Note 3 that had 9 hours and a half, and the Microsoft Lumia 640 XL LT with 9 hours and 49 minutes. Also, speaking of 2014 before, HTC One M8 scores more than this model, 10 hours and 15 minutes, so okay, quite good, but not exactly beating any records here. Now, on the other side of things, we use the PC Mark test, which simulates continuous usage, and here we scored 6 hours and 25 minutes, which is okay, but could have been better, especially for a phablet. We beat the OnePlus One that scores 5 hours and 15 minutes in this test, the Asus Zenfone 2 with 5 hours and 45 minutes, and the LG G4 with 5 hours and 19 minutes. We scored below the Samsung Galaxy A5, 6 hours and 51 minutes, Galaxy S6 Edge, 6 hours and 41 minutes, and the Galaxy S6, 7 hours and 6 minutes. The charging of this handset requires 2 hours and 13 minutes. It's almost double the duration of the OnePlus One charging that was a very good 1 hour and 15 minutes. It may be the fault of the USB Type-C cable, and it's probably not ready to offer fast charging, so keep in mind 2 hours and 13 minutes for the charge of the phone. Still, we beat the HTC One M8 that required 2 hours and a half to charge, iPhone 6s 2 hours and 35 minutes, and the Huawei P8 Lite with 2 hours and 41 minutes. Other models charge faster, like the Huawei Honor 6 2 hours, Huawei Mate S 1 hour and 59 minutes, and the Galaxy S6 with its 1 hour and 10 minutes. Once again, the long charge compared to the OnePlus One is triggered by the USB Type-C port and connector that doesn't have fast charge yet. Now, as usual, we're getting some special settings for the battery, and here you can find them. You can see an approximation of your usage and things like that, and then battery saver with very few options, basically just the one here. Turn it on, select when to turn it on automatically and if to do that, and once this is activated you will see a reduction in performance, limited vibration, location services and most background data. Email, messaging and other apps will sync less or maybe not at all and reduce your usage. You can also opt for a darker theme and save even more juice. Another thing to mention here is that after playing 2 hours of continuous Minecraft story mode, the battery dropped by about 35%, so you should be able to get let's say maybe something like 6 hours of continuous gaming if I were to approximate. And I have to highlight the comfy reversible USB Type-C charger as a plus, but then again the battery could have been a bit better, especially since this is a massive phone. Now, as far as the acoustics are concerned, the OnePlus 2 does not come with headphones and only the right grill is associated to a speaker. This one is only for aesthetic purposes. You're going to have to rely on Play Music as your music player with its usual interface, and if you go into the settings area you'll find something interesting. Aside from many streaming options, you should be able to find the equalizer. That's now a brand new one offered by the folks of OnePlus. Okay, so this is called Audio Tuner. It's an app of its own. It has options like music, movie or game with special tweaks for each activity. 10 channels await your customization, and there are extra customizations for music genres like classic, dance, electronic, hip hop, jazz or metal. So lots of customizations in the audio area are always good. Some extras here: max bass, max treble, max space, max dialogue and balance will also matter when listening to music. Okay, so it's time to actually listen to a tune or two. Okay, now the conclusions. The sound is pretty loud and clear. We have some good guitar sounds here. The bass is quite okay. There's no distortion at maximum volume. And I also have to mention the lack of FM radio. And there are no headphones to show or other special options aside from the audio tuner. Speaking of which, you saw that you can also trigger it from the top of the screen with those 3 options for movie, music and other one. Okay, so as usual, we use the decibel meter to measure the power of the speakers, and now let's see what came out of that test. So this is it, 82 decibels here at the front and back. We're way below OnePlus 1. That one scored 90.5 decibels, one of the loudest phones we've ever tested. Still, we scored below the LG G4 with its 87.8 decibels and below the HTC One M9 with its 86.9 decibels. However, we beat a few Huawei phones, like the Honor 6 with its 81 decibels, the Huawei P8 with its 81.2 decibels, and the Huawei Mate S with its 80.7 decibels. The sound is okay, but could be a bit louder, especially if you think about the OnePlus 1 and its huge 90 decibels. And I have to mention that I like the equalizer, and you can also feel it while playing the song. Now it's time to analyze this bright screen you're seeing right here. It's a 5.5-incher IPS LCD Full HD. It's pretty much the same one from the OnePlus 1. It also had an IPS Full HD panel, 401 ppi density, in-cell technology, and a 1500 to 1 contrast ratio. You don't have a specialized video player. You're going to have to rely on photos, and now it's time for the video playback experience. You just saw a sample of a very small amount of lag. Now let's judge the screen. So the screen is quite bright and crisp. The colors are a bit on the cold side. Since it's an IPS LCD, obviously view angles are wide. Contrast is quite good, and behavior in full sunlight doesn't pose a problem for legibility. Pixels are of the RGB stripe kind, you don't have to believe me. This is what the pixels of the OnePlus 2 look under the microscope. We also used the lux meter to measure the brightness and achieved 465 lux units, which is good. We beat the LG G4 and its 432 lux, OnePlus One and its 404 lux, and the Huawei Mate S and its 455 lux. In the meantime, we scored below the Galaxy S5 by 15 lux and below the AllView P8 Energy and its 471 lux, also below the iPhone 6 and its huge 570 lux. This remains a good screen, and of course it has specialized settings available here in the display department. Brightness level, color balance, which you can also feel. I complained before about the cold colors, this can fix it. Adaptive brightness, sleep, daydream, font size, and that's about it. A good screen, I have to say, it's way above average, that's for sure, and can certainly compete with all of the flagships this year. Now it's time to discuss the OnePlus 2 camera, starting at the back. 13 megapixel shooter right here with laser autofocus, dual LED flash. This mechanism has 6 lenses, optical image stabilization and f2.0 aperture. Its pixels measure 1.3 microns, and this laser focus helps you apparently focus in under 0.2 seconds. The sensor measures about half of an inch or so, and it's made by OmniVision, which is a rare feat nowadays. Most device makers opt for Samsung or Sony cameras or Toshiba cameras. This sensor is the OmniVision OV 13860. It's able to do 4K video capture and slow motion 720p 120 frames per second videos. At the front, a 5 megapixel shooter with 1.4 micron pixels, also made by OmniVision from what I know. Now the camera app opens up reasonably fast, has a very minimalistic and Spartan interface that's certainly inspired by the standard Google camera app. Okay, so as usual we have this castle here, we have a pretty good frame rate, and on the left side you can certainly see the main capture options like time-lapse, slow motion, photo, video, manual and panorama. Okay, and then the regular options include the photo resolution, save location, shutter, sound, grid and about. In the photo resolution you can opt for 12.4 megapixels, this is the maximum one, in 4:3, 7.9 megapixels in 16:9, or 9.3 megapixels in 1:1 aspect. And then we go back to the regular area, and here on the right side we should be able to see some extra options like clear image, HDR or beauty. Now let's explain them. So HDR, you already know it. Beauty will certainly apply some tweaks to get rid of your wrinkles and other problems, while clear image is a new feature that takes 10 pictures, combines them to achieve better clarity. Usually it tends to over sharpen the pictures. Then we have the flash with usual options and the timer right here, and that ends the right side of the UI. Now let's go back to the modes. There's no need to explain time-lapse, slow motion or video, maybe except for seeing the resolutions. We got 4K, 1080p or 720p. The thing to explain here is the manual mode with a few interesting subsettings. So there's this one here that, if I'm not mistaken, is the focus, can go from macro to infinity. Then there's the shutter that goes from the 8,000th part of a second to 30 seconds. Very impressive. If you thought that the LG G4 had the best settings here, well, guess not. The LG G4 can go from the 6,000th part of a second to 30 seconds, so you're gaining some extra shutter speed here. This symbol here is usually associated to the exposure. Well, they got it wrong. This is actually the white balance. Then the ISO going up to 1600, and finally the timer yet again. So that's the manual feature in a nutshell. Also, when you tap the screen once, you're able to set the 2 frames for the metering and exposure as you please. And then if you go back to the regular photo mode, tapping the screen once will trigger this, so to say, crosshair, and if you rotate it, you can change exposure as you want. I don't like this mechanism very much, I prefer the vertical or horizontal slider. Now, as far as the experience goes, the handset indeed focuses quite fast. It rushes the exposure a little bit, and there's a bit of a problem with the focusing in close-up mode. So when you're near a flower and you really want to take a picture of said flower, it takes a long while to focus in close-ups. It also has a tendency to overexpose things, and the zoom is quite fluid, as you can see. Picture taking is fast, and the quality is no doubt pretty good. Nice details, nice colors and texture, but the real challenge comes from taking shots outdoors, especially in the sunset or in low light conditions. So we have a gallery here, and the gallery has been taken in a sunny day of October, and some of the shots were taken in sunset conditions. Okay, so let's start the gallery analysis. We have over 230 pictures here. So first we got some inside shots. These Starbucks mugs, I'll have to say they're pretty much okay, but the colors are a bit on the cold side. And then we got this indoor selfie that's a bit yellowish and not very clear. However, you'll see later on that selfies can actually be pretty good with this handset. Okay, so now we will see a series of shots that were taken before the sunset, only a bit before, so their ISO levels are a bit off. There's a bit of an overexposure going on here. The clarity and colors are pretty okay, and I mean the colors are realistic and the clarity is reasonable. We also tried out the panorama and it came out a bit blurry, which is a problem here. And also while trying to take a series of macro shots, I registered some problems with the focus. Simply the camera would not want to focus on close-ups, which was pretty strange. However, in the shots we did take up close, the details were very good, like those flower close-ups you see there. We also took some landscape shots, looking pretty reasonable. And again, this time we take a photo of this tower and then we tried out that special clear image mode that totally over sharpens and exaggerates the image, and then HDR that didn't exactly light up the picture. Okay, so now you'll see a series of shots of a statue, and I have to say that I like the texture here, so the camera got the texture right. Some of these images were a bit too white, a bit overexposed by the camera. Once again, it was at around sunset time, so I have to say that those are the circumstances of the shots. We also have some nice focusing here on these rows, nice close-ups. And here is a sample of HDR, regular shot, HDR shot, really highlighting the sunset in the background of these statues. Now we played with a rosebud, we focus on the rosebud and blurred the background, focus on the background and blur the rosebud, so we're playing with focus. A few more shots doing that again from varied angles. Once again, this is around the time of sunset. As you can see, the park lights have been lit up. Some blurred landscape shots to keep in mind. And then another shot, a landscape shot, and if you try to zoom in, you'll see the quality of these pictures. Even though the camera does not have a very high resolution, it can handle the landscape shots reasonably. When it got dark, the flash really came out to play. And then we move further, leave this behind. Of course, you will have a full gallery in the text review. These are indoor shots in a mall with exaggerated colors, pretty good clarity and some overexposure. Okay, next day we took another series of images, which are these ones. It was a sunny day and conditions totally changed. First of all, ISO was at around 100 or 200 at most. And if you look at these landscape shots, not only they have good colors, but also good details. Even if you keep zooming in on the leaves of the trees, which traditionally are a problem even on hardcore handsets. Great colors again, much more realistic than the ones of the OnePlus One. I actually went back last year to a review of the OnePlus One and found its colors to be exaggerated, a bit too vivid compared to the real colors. It was also the time to trigger a new panorama, new and improved. So let's go back here. As I said before, new and improved panorama. This one has a pretty modest resolution though, 6880 over 1832. It's taken holding the phone like this in vertical mode. That's why it's not hugely wide. Okay, now we got this shot here of ducks, nice texture of the water, and a few more images once again in the full sunlight that can be reasonably powerful in the month of October. Some strange exposure here and there. And then we got to even more colorful areas with this toy train. We tried various aspect ratios. We tried out 16:9, 4:3 and 1:1. 1:1 was certainly not my favorite one. close-ups of flowers yet again. This time, thanks to the sun, we really get to see beautiful macros of flowers. More colorful shots, and this time the selfies were actually quite good. I said before that the indoor selfie was a disappointment. Well, the outdoor selfie offered excellent texture of the skin. Also the background looks pretty nice, and even more selfies, so everything is looking reasonable here. I have to say this is one of the best skin textures I've ever caught on camera with a selfie cam. These shots were taken in the shade. It's still a sunny day, but were shaded by the trees, and still these glossy items were caught pretty well on camera. Realistic colors, good lighting, exposure, white balance and focus, and those overexposed things were pretty much surpassed by these ones. The mandatory close-ups of flowers are here, and they're looking mighty fine. Excellent details. Excellent focus here, blurring the background like a bokeh effect, even though we don't have that option. And very nice texture. I was saving this one for some of the last. It's an excellent texture for these leaves. It totally represents autumn, the season we're in. And some more close-ups of this faucet, and ending it all with some more flowers and some landscape shots. Okay, so that's about it as far as the camera is concerned during the daytime. Very nice leaf texture and good focus, nice focus play. Compared to the OnePlus One, the colors are certainly better. You can see more details in landscape shots, and I would even dare to say that this model can pick a fight with the LG G4 during the daylight. It's also about 10 or 15% less powerful camera-wise than the Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge Plus. Of course, we must still remember that there are the on and off overexposure issues that we met first, but then again, those were close to sunset. We're done with the daytime, it's time to go to the nighttime shots, and I'm going to start with the first batch. Okay, so nighttime shots, batch number 1. I have to say that the lighting was quite good, nice colors, good exposure, and as you can see, everything looks swell even in the artificial light of the night. These shots were taken without a flash, and then we move to the other set of nighttime captures where we can really see the power of the flash. Here we go. So a shot without a flash, a shot with a flash, looking more powerful. Once again, without a flash and then with a flash. The shocking thing is that even without a flash, the images are pretty well lit, which is a surprise here. Excellent colors, the light halos are a bit too big for my liking. And I have to say I have rarely seen a phone that could light up the images like this, even without the flash on. And if you zoom in into the nighttime shot, you'll see there is surprisingly little grain on the image, and the images are pretty crisp. This is the flash in action, a bit too powerful in this scene at least. More pictures, landscape shots, and this time we use the flash, good colors, good clarity for the night. And then we started playing with the manual mode with the shutter speed options and turning it all the way up to 6 seconds of exposure, 8 seconds or even 10 seconds, getting results like this one here, making it seem like if it were daytime. More shots with the flash. Keep in mind this is taken at night at 1 AM and is very clear, very well lit, has very good colors, so that tells you something about this camera, the fact that it can deal with low light quite well, probably thanks to that laser autofocus thingy. Even more shots, and this is where I played with the shutter speed again and got to something like this. It's supposed to be around 20 seconds, and you can see it's quite clear. Try to fix it on something, you should need a tripod to get the best results. Okay, and now it's time for some nighttime close-ups. Just look at this picture. 1 AM, middle of the night, you can clearly see all the details thanks to that very powerful flash. It's good enough to be a wallpaper for someone's handset or tablet, and that tells you everything there is to know about the low light and nighttime behavior of the phone. So perfect flowers, nice colors and nice lighting even without the flash on. It feels even a bit better than a Galaxy S6 at night, and around the same level of the LG G4 that was basically a landmark in nighttime capture. It's clearly above the OnePlus One, that's for sure. Now it's time to analyze the videos. This camera can film in 4K, 1080p, 720p 120 frames per second slow motion, and MP4 format. We have a lot of videos to show, so let's pace ourselves and take them one by one. Okay, so I suppose this is video number 1, this one here. Let's check it out. It's a full HD video, 23 frames per second. Surprise, is not 30 frames per second. 20 megapixel bitrate, which is quite good. However, it suffers from some focus problems and some motion blur. It's also not very clear. You can see that constantly during the video the camera tries to refocus and refocus again. And then there's that motion blur that I find annoying. Okay, moving further, this one should be a 4K video capture, 42 megapixel bitrate, focus problems again. The clarity and colors are okay, but again there's that annoying refocus and sudden exposure change. Okay, then another full HD video, same problems, only with a bonus of detail loss when zooming in. And we have yet another video to follow. This one slightly highlights the motion blur thing. As you can already tell, I'm not very happy with the filming here. While the photo taking was good enough to be compared with the Galaxy S6 and the LG G4, the video capture is a disappointment, which, by the way, the LG G4 video capture was also a disappointment. Now we skip to the daytime video capture. That one was at the sunset area, and here we go. This is daytime, full sun, again refocusing, and now this image feels a bit burnt. Details not so good. So it's time to go to this slow motion video, which surprisingly looks quite well. 720p, 120 frames per second, looks okay. And then it's time for the test of the optical image stabilization by going down a flight of stairs. Problems with the wind, as you can hear, the microphone doesn't seem to handle it. And the optical image stabilization is a bit unimpressive here. At least this time we didn't lose the focus. However, the camera sure did wiggle a lot, which is not very impressive. Okay, and then we go to another video. One more 4K clip of ducks. It's a crisp 4K video with good details, good colors, and that refocus thing going on again. So the conclusions are that the video capture has evolved a bit from the OnePlus One. I actually went back to the OnePlus One and checked it out. That one filmed worse than this one. It was everything whitish, overexposed. This one here has only, I would say, not so bad problems, but still problems when it comes to video capture. The main problem is the constant refocusing and focusing again, the sudden exposure change, and the lack of details when zooming in. Also, it's less shaky than the OnePlus One, I feel. It's below the big four handsets from Samsung, Galaxy S6, S6 Edge, S6 Plus, S6 Edge Plus, and the Galaxy Note 5. It's also below the LG G Flex 2 that had an excellent video capture, and even the Samsung Galaxy A5 that had a surprisingly good capture. So keep in mind, video capture not that good here. And we're not even done yet. There's still nighttime video capture, which goes something like this. This one is without a flash, 19 frames per second, a bit blurry, motion blur again. And obviously you probably want to see the one with the flash. Things got a little better here, the colors look better, the image is clearer. It's a bit grainy if you really look at it closer. And again, the focus thing happens. If you look at the nighttime capture of the OnePlus One, you'll clearly figure out that this one films much better, the OnePlus 2, and it's still below the LG G4 and the Samsung Galaxy S models. Overall, this camera is an improvement from the one of the predecessor, and I mean here the OnePlus One, and especially when it comes to photo taking and when it comes to colors. And aside from colors, we also have the advantage of extra clarity, especially in landscape shots, We got great selfies this time, and the videos may be poor, but they're still above the OnePlus One. Okay, so that's the camera in a nutshell. Then we go to the video editing, photo editing, where you can use options like auto, light, color, pop, vignette, where you can go to these filters here and play with the crop and other options. So keep in mind this thing, the camera evolves from the OnePlus One. At nighttime it's a pleasant surprise, while the video does not impress. Now it's time to talk about the performance, and by performance I'm going to mean first the temperature. So this device is able to reach a temperature of 38.4 degrees Celsius after playing the game Riptide GP2 for 15 minutes, which means there's no overheating here. If you want to talk about web browsing, Chrome is the stock browser here, and you can access gsmdom.com very fast, smooth scrolling, and the virtual keyboard is all stock Lollipop unless you want to use SwiftKey that comes pre-installed here. It's comfy to use and well spaced. Now as far as the connectivity is concerned, this is what the dialer looks like. This is a dual SIM nano SIM handset. It doesn't have NFC, it does have speed dial. It also has the alert slider here with the 3 position. We got all notifications, priority interruptions only, and no interruptions depending on what your business is that day, for example. The call volume is okay, clarity is not so good, it's actually a bit metallic, the sound coming from the speaker, and the microphone offers some good noise cancelling. So on the connectivity side, I'd say we're happy aside from that metallic thingy. Of course, we also have LTE connectivity on this model. Now it's time for the big old benchmarks, so famous, so loved, and so appreciated, and we have quite a few of them. Okay, so you're probably wondering what handsets I decided to compare the OnePlus 2 with. So I compared the OnePlus 2 with the OnePlus One, HTC One M9 for the sake of the Snapdragon 810 first version, LG G4 and Galaxy S6. So it's a battle of the Snapdragon 810 new version with the Snapdragon 810 older version, with the Snapdragon 801 from the OnePlus One, and with the Snapdragon 808 from the LG G4, and finally Exynos 7420 from the Galaxy S6. So in quadrant we scored 29,693 points. We beat the OnePlus One by about 5,000 points, the HTC One M9 by about 2,000 points, or better said by about 1,000 points and a bit, since the HTC One M9 scored 28,393 points, while the LG G4 was at 17,697, and the Galaxy S6 beat us with its 36,419 points. Okay, so let's go back here. Next up is Antutu with a very good score, 61,784. We beat the OnePlus One that scored 37,000, beat the HTC One M9 with its 52,000, LG G4 48,000, and Galaxy S6 68,000. There's also Nenamark in the mix that offered us a score of 60.3 frames per second. The OnePlus One had actually more, 63 frames per second, HTC One M9 59.9 frames per second, LG G4 60.1 frames per second, Galaxy S6 59.4 frames per second. Velamo is in the mix as well. In the HTML5 test we got 3125 in Chrome, while the predecessor had 3002, the HTC One M9 2971, LG G4 3652, and Galaxy S6 3504. 3D Mark offered us a very good result, I would say, 23,188. It even beats the Galaxy S6 with its 22,141, and then OnePlus One had 19,397, HTC One M9 had 21,517, and LG G4 18,228. Geekbench 3 is in the mix as well, 801 in the single core test, 3830 in the multi-core test, while the OnePlus One had 969 over 2626. HTC One M9 had 1007 over 3843, and LG G4 had 1138 over 2996. Finally, Galaxy S6 had 1477 over 5007, so it totally surpassed us. We did two GFX tests, GFX 3.1 47 frames per second and 3.0 40 frames per second, so those are the values that we use here. We beat all the other models. OnePlus One had 28.4 frames per second, HTC One M9 had 26 frames per second, LG G4 had 32 frames per second and the Galaxy S6 around 35 frames per second. We also did a speed test on Wi-Fi with a download speed of 25 MB per second and upload of 29. OnePlus One had 26 and 22, HTC One M9 29 and 27, and the LG G4 22 and 22. In the browser mark test, the score was 1353. We got beaten by the OnePlus One with 1368, HTC One M9 1658, LG G4 2093, Galaxy S6 2724. SunSpider, where the lower is the better, we had a pretty bad score, 1353 again, that's a surprise, while the OnePlus One had 1048, HTC One M9 1174, and the LG G4 an impressive 517. Galaxy S6 had 528. Finally, base mark X, 34,065 points, very impressive. We beat the OnePlus One by about 10,000 points. We doubled the score of the HTC One M9. We beat the LG G4 that had 25,000 points, and we got beaten by the Galaxy S6 with its 38,000 points. We also did the Limpack test. In Limpack we had 238.841 mFlops in the single thread test, while the multi-thread one offered us 420 mFlops, and the rivals, well, the HTC One M9 had 598 over 651, the LG G4 had 355 over 538, and the Galaxy S6 obviously wins this with 607 over 664 mFlops. Finally, yet another test, Base OS 2. Here we had the overall score of 1333, while the LG G4, for example, had 1483, so those were a lot of benchmarks. Now let's see who won. Okay, so this model is only able to win 2 out of the 13 benchmarks, the OnePlus 2, versus the OnePlus One, it wins 8 out of 11 benchmarks. And I have to say that the Snapdragon 808 and 810 first versions were totally beaten in the main benchmarks by the Snapdragon 810 new version. Obviously the phone has no lag, as you can well see. It maybe only lag a bit when you start up a video, a 4K video and all that. Anyway, keep that in mind, it beats the OnePlus One in 8 out of 11 benchmarks, so it has evolved, that's clear. And as far as the gaming is concerned, you can run titles like Riptide GP2 without a problem. Recently we played the Minecraft story mode and had no lag, no problem whatsoever. So that's a just launched game. Now let's see how Riptide GP2 is handled here. Okay, so pretty good graphics, responsive controls, very crisp image, I have to say. Just look at the water. I've played this game on probably dozens of devices, maybe even hundreds, and the water has maybe never been so crisp. Okay, nice water drops and that funky effect. I have to say that gaming is top notch on this device. You can clearly play any title on it. Five Nights at Freddy's, Asphalt 8, FIFA, whatever you want. It's now time to talk about the software. As you can see, we're running here an OS that's clearly related to Android Lollipop. It's actually Oxygen OS 2.1.1 based on Android Lollipop 5.1.1. So basically OnePlus and Cyanogen split up their relationships. There is no more Cyanogen mode here. This is Oxygen OS 2.0, clearly based on Lollipop, but with a little bit of extras here. The first thing, it's less customized than Cyanogen mode, obviously, and less customizable. There's a thing called Shelf here, you can see it here. You can check out the header image, the weather and place, and these are the apps you use most, and then the frequent contacts, and that's Shelf in a nutshell. It's your leftmost home screen that feels a bit like a Google Now replacement, and it includes frequent contacts, apps, and the weather and a header image. If you keep the screen pressed, you're going to see wallpapers, widgets. The widgets are all the stock ones you already know, and settings that include the icon pack, app drawer grid size, shelf that can be disabled, and temperature unit. In the recents area, you'll see the usual carousel that will allow you to close apps by swiping to the side. Drop down area includes quick settings and notifications, as well as the brightness slider. And then we go to the settings area, which is available right here, and it looks totally lollipopish, so to say. Here you can change things like buttons. You can set on-screen buttons in case you're unhappy with these ones here. You can swap buttons, turn on backlight, and see what happens if you do a long press or a double tap on the home button. These are the actions that can be set up, and each of these 3 buttons here can have special actions related to them, with either a long press or a double tap, which is nice. There's an extra bit of degree of customizability. Then we got the gestures, the usual double tap to wake, open the camera by drawing an O, and other such features. Okay, then we got the display, some notification, battery, users, and finally fingerprint. There is a fingerprint scanner included in the home button. You probably know that already. We have a fingerprint added here. You can rename it or delete it or add a few more. And also you can set the security of your device to be with the fingerprint, but that can only be enabled if you set a password first. Maybe something like ABCD, then continue, ABCD again. Okay, and only now you can enable the fingerprint unlock, and check this out. Okay, so here we go again. You will not only unlock the device if you're swiping. You don't need to swipe anymore, you just place your finger here and the device is unlocked like that. Usually you had to press this button and then press the fingerprint scanner. Now there's no need for that, you just press it directly. Here we go again. Very easy, unlocking the device from standby straight to functioning, which is kind of cool. You skip one more step in the process of getting to the home screen. So the conclusion is that the fingerprint scanner is fast and accurate, and it was also easy to register my fingerprint. All of them are pluses, obviously. And now you can also customize the device with a dark mode that changes the system theme in case you want that. You can also set accent colors and tweak your LED notification for battery full, battery charging, and all that. Select a range of colors. Those are all the options. And now, as usual, we go to the apps area. These are the pre-installed apps. Luckily there's no bloatware, it's as close to stock Lollipop as it gets. So we have here audio tuner, calculator, calendar, camera, Chrome, clock, contacts, docs, downloads, drive, Dropbox, files, Gmail, Google settings, Google Plus, Hangouts, Keep, Maps. Let's check out Maps, by the way. Okay, recently updated one more time, finding us pretty fast. Let's check out the satellite view. Still looking pretty well. Then we proceed to Messenger, phone, photos, play games, play music, play store, settings, sheets, slides, and SwiftKey, voice search, and YouTube. As you can see, SwiftKey is pre-installed here. In case you want that method of input, it's available on your device aside from the stock one. Note bloatware, but I also miss the customization that Cyanogen mode offered on the OnePlus One, and many people may miss it as well. Anyway, in the future Oxygen OS may evolve into a more customizable piece of software. Now it's time for the verdict. This is the OnePlus 2, reviewed at gsnloan.com, and on the pro side is the battery. It's only okay, it could be better, especially considering the large capacity of the battery. So the battery is okay. We got a very nice equalizer that you saw in the review. It's called Audio Tuner and has a ton of options and also nice interface. The acoustics are quite good, the screen is bright, we got a very good selfie camera here, one of the best skin textures I've seen. Also very good low light capture from the back camera, good picture details during the daytime, and other things we're mentioning. There's no overheating, there's no lag, there's no bloatware, the phone is fast, the fingerprint scanner is accurate, and generally the functional is flawless. Shelf is also a nice idea, it may evolve into something nice. And on the cons section, it's still a massive phone. I'm not afraid to say it's an ugly phone. It's not aesthetically pleasing, so we can call it ugly. It's not a sex appealing design anyway, and the back camera is placed a bit too low with this metal here and this strange texture at the back. So massive and ugly. The charging is long compared to the OnePlus One. They basically doubled the charge time, which is not okay. There is no NFC. The video capture is poor, let's face it, and there's less customization than on the OnePlus One. I don't like the camera UI, to be honest, and also I'm not a big fan of those capacitive buttons that haven't been marked. I mistake them all the time between themselves. Okay, so as you probably know already, we don't give grades to handsets anymore, we only give conclusions. The OnePlus 2 is an improvement from the OnePlus One, especially in the camera area, maybe a bit in the battery area and a bit in the screen area. However, it charges in double the time, it has very light software, and by light I mean very little customization from the stock Lollipop. There's only basically shelved as a new option. It has a good screen and a good camera minus the video, not so good looking design, it doesn't have any lag or bloatware, and the price tag is about 200 euros less than what other flagships will demand from your wallet. So about 423 euros with the shipping tax is the price of the OnePlus 2. It doesn't have a Quad HD screen, but it does have a good selfie camera, a good back camera minus the video, and a good multimedia experience and decent battery. Basically, the whole concept of the OnePlus 2 is the following. It's for people who want a good phone, but not one to show off. This is the OnePlus 2, tested at gsndon.com. A solid handset with flagship specs, but also video capture could be much better. This is it from gsndon.com. Bye bye.